coming up.
And then, as you rightly just said it, that word, a bit of a weird word, but it comes from quantum physics, this is all a collapsed possibility. So out of the, let's say, boundless, limitless potential of this existence, the divine world behind this all, that consciousness, this is what we know as the collapse. This is the particle part of what we know. Now, if our consciousness cannot move out of the collapse of this possibility, then everything will be collapsing again and again in the same state of consciousness, what we call in psychology conditioning.
Well, hello, Synchronauts, and welcome to what was originally going to be an Instagram live session, and then we tried on Facebook, and then it didn't work. But I want to thank you, Mike Bais, for your patience, because anyways, we decided to, let's just record this, and then we will share it on YouTube for the whole world to see. How are you, Mike? Welcome.
Very well, thank you. Yes. Indeed. Finally, we made it. We are here.
In a different way from what we had planned, but here we are, and I think that's what's important. So thank you for your patience, and I'm really happy that we will have this conversation today. So today we're going to talk about Kabbalah and quantum physics, because you just released a book talking about Kabbalah and science, and we already had you on our podcast, the Suya sessions, which is online. So now if you want to go check it out, it's really good. But here we're going to talk about other things that are actually addressed in the book. So we decided to talk about Kabbalah and quantum physics today. So I have a question to begin with, which is going to be a lot of fun because I reread a part of the book before this interview and I prepared some questions. I always have tons of questions. So we will see how much we can cover today, and if not, you can come back and talk about these things. But let us begin with the big one. What is consciousness?
Oh, yeah, let's do that for the rest of the interview.
It would take lifetimes, but just like, how are you addressing this in your book?
Sure. Well, first of all, let us start from the framework of the book, which is the Kabbalistic tradition, especially the Toledano tradition. Everything starts in existence from the divine world, and that is portrayed or described as pure consciousness without any definite attribution. So everything is in full potential there. Everything that was, is, and shall ever be is present in that world, but nothing has come to pass yet. So that's the primordial ground of our being and becoming. And then from that world, the divine world of the ever potential, which is now at this very moment, then unfolds the worlds of creation. So time and space unfold. And that's also the unfoldment of consciousness in time and space. So you could say that there is a kind of stillness in consciousness and a consciousness in movement. And from that created world, then consciousness moves into psychological realms or worlds and in the manifested world. And that is the material world here and now. So consciousness is a state of being and a state of becoming.
Both at the same time.
Well, that is one of the paradoxes in mysticism and within quantum consciousness, quantum physics, excuse me. So, and that's in a sense a cognitive problem for us.
Of course.
It's a dualistic idea. How can things be two things at the same time? So, like in quantum mechanics, they say it can be something, a particle and a wave at the same time. And quantum physics and Kabbalah has something to say about it. And the answer is, yes, it can be. And at the same time, no, it can't.
And it's hard for us to understand because as we are incarnate in this third dimension, although some people might argue that we're also present in other dimensions, which I think is true. But at the same time, like our consciousness is mostly like awake in the beta state in the third dimension. So for us to try to grasp what is going on in other dimensions, it's really hard to understand because we don't have even the structure, no, in our brains to understand what's going on in other realms. So in a way, that's why we can't understand that paradox, because like here in the here and now, it doesn't seem possible, right?
Very much. You know, from the moment that we are born in this physical body, we are born in space and time. And this body that you have received is a three-dimensional body in space and time with these 5 senses, these instruments, you can call them, that are perfectly matching the world around us, the natural world. So we do not, most of the time, see, hear, taste, smell, feel anything else than the dualistic world around us of becoming, constantly moving. At the same time, we have a mind which is also moving all the time. So for us, consciousness is something that is not much about being, but much more about becoming. So that's in quantum terms, that is more like the wave function of everything. Everything is in motion all the time. And that's the problem with meditation, for example. You can't quiet the mind. Everything has a will of its own, the body, the impulses, instincts, and the mind itself. But there's also this beingness of consciousness, and it is not of space and time. So we call this in mysticism and Kabbalah, we call this the eternal. And in quantum mechanics, they would say this is non-locality. So it's neither here nor there, but it is everywhere at the same time, which matches perfectly with eternity. Now, there's again this paradox, but the mystic knows that these 2 states of consciousness, the becoming and the beingness, can be experienced at the same time. So when I'm talking to you at this very moment, we are moving through the interview by thinking and doing some gestures and by talking. But there can be an experience at the same time of the eternal, this moment of now. And from that now, that's the ground of being. Therefrom unfolds all the potential from this very moment that we are in. Okay. Most of the time we are not aware, of course, of that potential.
No, because we are, as I said, we're so much in density that we are like completely collapsed, as quantum physics would say, no? We are collapsed. We're in that phase, like it's the final phase. So the earlier phases, for us to glimpse them, we can only glimpse them maybe through dreams or deja vus or synchronicities, for example, right?
Yes, very much, yes. And that's the natural condition or state of the human being that we share with the rest of the natural world, the mineral, vegetable, and animal level, as we say in Kabbalah. And then, as you rightly just said it, that word, a bit of a weird word, but it comes from quantum physics, this is all a collapsed possibility. So out of the, let's say, boundless, limitless potential of this existence, the divine world behind this all, that consciousness, this is what we know as the collapse. This is the particle part of what we know. Now, if our consciousness cannot move out of the collapse of this possibility, then everything will be collapsing again and again in the same state of consciousness, what we call in psychology conditioning. Okay.
Yes, so, it makes sense. Like you follow the program as if it's just like a loop, right?
It does, exactly. Yeah. And therefore they say a conditioned state of particles or collapsing is actually a continuous process.
Yes.
And a part of us physicality and a part of our psyche called the ego is very happy with the continuum of time and space, because then I can rely on it, and there's a kind of a safety thing in it, and I can predict in a
and
sense.
control it.
Yes, very much, and the ego likes that very much, and that's natural, because from controlling, or the idea of controlling, we feel safe. So a quantum change or transformation of a different collapsing of possibilities is a discontinuum.
Okay.
Like a jump, like sometimes they say it's a quantum jump. Well, where does this jump has to be realized? That is in consciousness, because consciousness is the agent of transformation in all spiritual traditions, but it is also the agent of collapsing of wave possibilities in quantum physics. This is where most quantum physics, I think, would agree eventually, most, I say, is that that this universe where you and I and all the listeners are part of is eventually just one wave of probabilities. And as it were, it is waiting to be observed by our innate consciousness. But there's a mystery behind it, because our conditioned consciousness doesn't collapse anything new. And it's good.
No,
and
we
it works
keep on,
that way.
Making the more of the same. Of course.
Exactly. So there has to be a different level, so to speak, of consciousness, where a collapse can really be realized. And that in Kabbalah is called the level of the soul, where you know that you are the observer of this all, and that you, as the subject of the observation, connects with the object of observation consciously, and then there's a magical possibility that what you observe is being influenced by the, let's say, the power of the observer itself, of the subject.
It's connecting from the observing comes from consciousness, right?
Very much.
So if we talk about, because I'm looking at your beautiful tree of life behind you.
Yes.
And so from what I remember in your book, you're mentioning that all of this consciousness process begins in Atzilut. Like if we were talking about Jacob's ladder, like it's the highest part of the tree. So it would be like the equivalent of the Keter, no? The Keter of the Keter. If I am, if I'm not saying things correctly, please correct me. But this is how I'm understanding, no? The Atzilut I mean, the Keter in Atzilut is the highest one, so consciousness is over there. But in our human experience, we're down here in the Malkut of Malkut, no? In the Malkut of Asiya, which is the lower world, the lowest actually. And so here we have collapsed everything, as you say. In Asiya, everything is collapsed, but in Atzilut, it's all in potentiality. That would be like the quantum field of possibilities, right?
Yes.
So, but our consciousness is still somehow, even though we're here in the Malkut of Malkut, our consciousness is still connected to the Keter of Asiya, correct? It never finishes, like that connection, it's never broken.
No, if I may say, it is even more than a connection. So it seems on a diagram like the tree of life or the Jacob's ladder that the highest world and the lowest world are very far apart. But in reality, and the Kabbalist eventually comes to know this, is that the divine world is the backdrop or the canvas on which this world of phenomena is playing out all the time. So without the world, the divine world, potential and eternity, we couldn't have this conversation at this very moment.
Yes, because what would be sustaining the reality of Asiya, no?
Exactly. There's a beautiful thing, well, a lot of beautiful things in Kabbalah. It's a poetic saying, but it says that time and space is the mercy of eternity.
Wow.
So out of eternity unfolds continuously time and space. And with that unfoldment in creation itself, the possibility for these quantum changes in the universe, and also therefore within us. There's a quantum physicist called David Bohm, and he says the highest world that you rightly said is Absolute. He says that's the implicate order. Everything is there potential. And the final world, again, that's my body and the physical world around us. That's the explicate order. So implicit and explicit, but they are undividable. They are one and the same thing, but they express themselves differently. One is the pure potential and eternal, and the other one is the collapsed idea, the dream, as they would say in yoga, for example. This is the dream state of collapsing that continues all the time.
The Maya.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The continuous cycles that go on and on. Yeah.
I'm going to have to listen to this again. I don't know how many times to really assimilate everything you're saying, because this is very deep and it might seem complicated, but at the same time, it's not like there are principles behind this that are very fractal in a way. And they make a lot of sense. Like if you really stop and think about it, like, of course, there is an unfoldment there. Everything begins with an idea, be God's idea, if you want to talk in these terms, no? God saying like, let there be light, no? And then there was light. So everything begins with an idea, with a thought, and then things get in motion so that at some point they will manifest, and they will, like, if we talk about quantum physics, then that wave will collapse, and then we will see a physical result here in Asia. So I have a question for you, related, coming back to the tree, because I have never thought about this. When we talk about the quantum field of possibilities, we would say that it's that time or space before time and space, actually, which is kind of, how can you be talking about time and space, Aida, before time and space? But we're trying to approximate this phenomenon through words. And you also talk about language in your book, which I really like, because I am a communications major and I love everything about language. You already know this.
Yes.
So that helps me also understand, like, how can we put into words these things that are so mystical or so, I don't know, I don't have the words proving what I'm trying to say, no? But for instance, talking about in the tree, because before the first Keter, we have 3 other like layers. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. They are called Ein, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Out. But now, while I was preparing for this conversation, I was thinking, okay, but are these a part of Absolute, or are they beyond Absolute as well?
Very good question, really, because I have noticed in my years as a Kabbalist and teaching Kabbalah that these things are mixed up sometimes, but Kabbalah is very explicit in it. So what they say is God is what you just described as the 3 negative veils. God is Ayin, absolute nothing. God is Ein Sof, absolute all. God is Ein Sof, which is basically the limitless light. But this is God, the transcendent, which means beyond existence. And what is existence? That starts with Absolute. Those are the 4 worlds. So the divinity is not the same as God. The divine is an expression of the transcendent. You know, transcendence is just transcendence. So you can't give any attributions to it. No ideas, no symbols. This also means that quantum physics has no relevance in the idea of the transcendent.
Wow,
because there was no time and space.
Yes.
That's
the question that I was thinking. Okay, how can you talk about time and space before time and space? So how do we define this phenomenon in Kabbalah? And you just explained it. It makes sense, no?
Yes, I think so.
So the thing is, maybe because our experience sometimes, even our experience with language is very limited. And then we try to explain these things that are so I don't even have the word in English. Sutiles, we say in Spanish. They're very subtle. Okay, I remember.
Yeah.
They're very subtle, and they're very like they go beyond words as well. So how can you describe a phenomenon if you don't have the terms? Because I think, let me just tell me if I'm correct. I think I read in your book, if you don't have the words to describe it, do you even know what it is? No?
Yeah, well, here we have a problem in a sense where, let's say, empirical science, and I'm also coming from that part of the, let's say, the normal scholarly world, doesn't have the tools. The mainstream, yeah. With all respect, I mean, happy to have them, but the way that we measure certain things from the empirical scientific department, it simply doesn't have the tools to measure something beyond their own tools.
It falls short,
and most of the tools are limited to the two lowest worlds on the tree of life, or Jacob's ladder, which is Asiya, physical phenomena, and partially also energetic and psychological phenomena. Now, so that's a problem in itself, that you can't measure consciousness, and also you can't measure the phenomena of the subtler worlds of consciousness, which we would say in Kabbalah is the world of Bria, or the heavenly metaphysical world. But the fact that it can't be measured doesn't mean that it's not there.
Of course.
Because at least we can experience the fact that it is there through certain phenomena in our psyche, which we would call archetypes.
Yes.
So you talked about language, and language and symbols belong to the world of the psyche. Therefore, it has its limits. Therefore, certain experiences can't be put into words at all. And sometimes if you do, it loses its essence for you.
It's magic, it's preciousness. Yes.
Yeah. Where words stop, most of the time the symbol continues to have still relevance to the experience. And then the highest form, you can say, of symbols is archetypes. And then we come to, the whole realm of myth and legend and fairy tales, and of course art and music. Don't let us not forget about that.
Yes, it's very important.
Very much, yeah. All the artistic expression of our human nature is very important here. Yeah.
And now that you're mentioning this, it's really interesting, because how can you explain that the same kinds of symbols or archetypes have presented themselves throughout history and in different parts of the world? And now you might say, oh, we have the internet, everything is connected. Okay, but how can you explain this, like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, or I don't know how many thousand years ago, or hundreds of years ago, when the same things or the same ideas were presenting themselves in the world, no? So how do you explain that? And as you say, we're falling short of, we don't have the tools, but it's not only that, because if we think about our own senses, we are very limited as human beings. We don't have the whole range of like the visuals, like we don't see all of the spectrum of light. We don't hear all of the spectrum of sounds. It makes me think about the story. I don't know if you know the story about giraffes. Like they said, oh, giraffes, like some years ago, they said, no, giraffes, they don't make any noises. They're mute, no?
Yeah.
And the thing is, of course, they're not mute. The thing is, they started recording. Now we have better equipment. And I think that will happen with science eventually. We're going to start getting better equipment to start measuring certain things. But they had a certain equipment to measure, and they were recording them because they were like, it can't be that they're not making any noise. And lo and behold, turns out that they are making sounds, but they are below our listening range.
Very good example. Yeah.
So we have these two sides of the story. On the one side, we as humans, we are limited in what we can perceive through our senses. And on the other side, our tools for measuring certain natural phenomenon, they are not either like so advanced, because we haven't even thought about looking into that, no? But I've
Sure.
seen a jump in consciousness in that sense in the past few years, where technology is advancing at the same time that our consciousness, and I mean consciousness in the term of awareness. We're
Mhm.
becoming aware of certain things that happen in the natural world, even in our own
Yeah,
bodies, our own psyches. And you're like,
yeah.
huh, like this is new information, but it's not like
Mhm.
it's new because it wasn't there. It's just that we hadn't noticed about this. And I
Yeah.
think that Kabbalah is helping people to approach these things from a mystical point of view, but there is a science and a structure behind
Mhm.
it. That's what has amazed me the most. I don't know, how did you come to this connection between Kabbalah and science? I know the precise moment that happened for me, but I want to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts on this.
Well, because my personal history is from the Department of Healthcare and Science, and with really an interest in the whole psychobiology of the human being, and all the potential of the human body. And because, as a lot of people know already by now, for example, the nervous system has an enormous potential that probably we haven't understood until yet, let alone that we have realized it within us. Um, so, together with quantum physics, I was really fascinated by this. And when starting to study and gradually integrate Kabbalah, I saw with a few of my Kabbalist colleagues, so to speak, and with my teacher, that this was something that we shouldn't ignore and really try to put things together, but very carefully, that we really are precise with the metaphysical background of the tree in Kabbalah and what truly is meant with the quantum science. And talking with my teacher at that point, which is probably back in 2013 or 14, he said, well, Mike, this is likely to be the next step in psychology, quantum physics. And yeah, so I wrote a first article by then about the topic,
Mhm.
which was collected in a book as a gift for Halevi. It's I don't think it's in print, but I have it here. It's
Oh,
called Fruits of the Tree of Life,
okay.
and it's full with articles, and that's where it all started for me.
Wow.
And from there, I gave some courses in Holland and in the UK and somewhere else,
Mhm.
and it just grew out and became, yeah, more and more of a volume in a manuscript, and there we have it in two different books.
Now two books, not the one, but
Exactly. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, because well, actually, and I told you, like, I know that you don't want to write anymore about this for a while, or maybe like for good. But I'm like, no, there's more to be explored in terms of this because, in my case, my approximation to this has been through neuroeducation because I studied pedagogy, even though I don't have the degree, but it doesn't matter. I studied pedagogy, and through that, I had this training on neuroeducation, and I've been
Yes.
reading a lot of Joe Dispenza mostly, and obviously your books, uh, but also Bruce Lipton. And when I've been doing the meditations, and I love your book because you have really nice meditations which are
Hmm.
connecting Kabbalah to this part of quantum physics in our brains and our bodies, which is brilliant, I think. But when I was doing one of these meditations, with Joe Dispenza, he's talking that like you are in nowhere, you're nobody, nowhere, no space, in no time.
Hmm.
And then I was like, hey, this is Ain, this is the nothing. That's the quantum field of possibilities, no?
Yes.
So when
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's quantum physics in Kabbalah, and that's when it
Yes.
started clicking for me. And then I met you, and then I started studying with you, and then I'm reading your book, helping you with the second volume, and I'm like, how can we how are people not noticing the like the potential here to talk about, as you say, no, the human mind, but also in terms of neurodiversity as well,
Hmm.
and discovering the mind and the emotions and the body and healing and the
Yes.
connection with God, or however you want to call the transcendent, as you said. So
Yeah.
For me, it's amazing to see that more people are seeing the same. Like, it's been there for thousands of years, as you have very well told me in other times. So to be bringing that information up to speed with what we know now in science, I think that the work that you're doing is really brilliant. And so we have a few minutes left before we
Oh
finish
yeah.
this conversation. But I want to quote something from your book, which I loved. Like, it's really funny because we only we only had two of my questions. Like, I have 11 questions ready for you.
Oh, but carry on, Ida. It's fine.
No, that we will continue these conversations for sure, because there is much to discuss and people need to know what you're discovering. But I want to finish this conversation before we talk about what you're doing, so that people will know how to contact you and everything. But this quote is beautiful, because how many of us, because we are so focused on the collapse part, in our 3D lives, that we feel separate from divinity or from God. And so you say in your book, and this is beautiful, it says, although we may feel divided in the world of action and space-time phenomena, unity and wholeness are always here. And for me, like, this is one of the beautiful golden nuggets in your book, because it reminds us that that is true. We have forgotten this connection with our own divinity. And so in your book, you are offering us a way back to that in terms of information, and also these very practical meditations. And so what inspired you to add these meditations? Is this something that you would encourage people to do, start meditating to enhance that connection and to enhance that remembrance?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because first of all, and that's probably the most intimate part of this answer, is because that is my own experience. And I would like others to have similar experiences that lead to that timeless, eternal moment, which we cannot experience in like a few seconds before or just a few seconds behind this moment. So it's already here. And we talked about the quantum phenomena of the timelessness as non-local. So something has to go out of time to make it possible to get into a quantum leap or a quantum change to happen. Now, that is meditation in general. So, because meditation, as you said, like a few minutes ago, it's the awareness of being, or being conscious of being conscious. That is, simply put, meditation. So even the listeners now at this very moment can become purely conscious of listening, not who you are, but just the consciousness, that the attention that you are here and that you are listening. Like I have the attention of speaking at the moment. Now, that can bring you in meditation, or at this very moment, into a state of meditation, a kind of timelessness, but in time and space. So I can testify at this very moment of that, what I'm saying. So, and it's a paradox, because I'm in time and space with you and with all the listeners, and at the same time, I feel I am not in time and space. And it's very subtle, that word again. So it's a matter of practice. And the thing to approach it is meditation, whether it be in stillness, which is sometimes a bit challenging, or through forms and visualizations.
Yes.
Now, and Kabbalah, if I may extend upon this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead, please. Yeah.
We talked about archetypes, fairy tales, etc., and myth. The book of the Torah has been spoken about in Kabbalah. The 5 books of the Old Testament, the Christians would say, starts with Genesis, which is a creation myth. One of the many, many creation stories of the world. And they all tell the same story, but the metaphor is sometimes a little bit different here and there, and the symbols. So in Genesis, it's been spoken about this perfect state where everything is separate, but in a state of union.
Yeah.
That's the divine world. where nothing happened yet, but everything is there in full potential. So that's Adam and Eve there. And they are not aware of their separateness, but they are very happy together, as it were.
Yeah.
There's a duality, there's pairs of opposites, but they do not see their differences. So they don't have to cover certain parts of their body. They do not see what the differences are. And then this idea of eating the apple of the tree of good and evil. So that is knowledge of duality. And that's being born. So then we are falling, as it were, from heaven, from the state of unity into a state of duality. And then we are here. You come out of the womb. We're in the world of duality with a body which is continuously in a dualistic state, with a psyche which is in a dualistic state. And we forget about where we came from in the heavenly sense. So, but in life, the Kabbalist says, you can return to that state of heaven while you are here, because those worlds are not separate. They are here at the same time or in eternity. So,
yes, please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to emphasize that in meditation, you can return to Eden by being still and aligning yourself to the eternal, while being here alive in this beautiful dualistic physical world and in this wonderful body of yours. The one doesn't exclude the other.
No.
So on the tree, the middle pillar is eternity, and the side pillars are space and time.
Okay.
If we are caught in space and time, we are not in eternity. But from the eternal, we can be there and observe space and time. And then the whole game changes.
Of course, yes, because you start experiencing your life in a different way with a different awareness coming back to this world, no?
Very much.
We have a different awareness, and I'm just wondering, I started wondering right now, who is being benefited from us being in this consciousness of separation, no? I'm just gonna leave that question open for everybody who's gonna watch or listen to us. You know, just think about it. Who is benefiting from us being separate? And now that if you're listening to us right now, then you can remember, hey, that's not the original state of things. They have made us believe that. We have bought that idea, but we have these tools to go back to eternity while being here in this world of duality. Yes. And I think that your book has many little nice meditations to help us do that. And I think that's it's really good that you consider doing that, like integrating these practices, because the information it's very lovely. No, it's really nice. But what's the point if you cannot, like, what good is it gonna bring to my life if I'm not really, you know, integrating it into my experience? So, so Mike, how can we contact you? Can you tell us your social media or your website, please?
Yes, definitely. My website is, if you're not familiar with it, maybe a strange name, but it's called Circle of Avalon.nl, because I'm from the Netherlands. So that's one long word, Circle of Avalon.nl. And you can see a bit about what I'm doing. And Facebook, you can find me on my name, Mike Bais. Just say hi, and if you're interested, let me know. And then I know that you're coming from this interview, you've seen it. Or my business page is Circle of Avalon. Either way is good. Yeah. And you can find me on Instagram as well.
Yes, Instagram. That we have that failure over there, but it's good that we have alternative ways of connecting and bringing the information out. So that's all good.
Definitely. Yeah, we always find a way.
Yeah. And do you have your book there with you, or your books there with you? That you can show us?
Yes, I have. This is the first one, published in 2019. So it's not called part one because it's part one. So this is about quantum physics and a little bit about neuroplasticity, but not so much. So yeah, that's the first one. in relation to Kabbalah, of course, and this is just recently being published. And it extends again on quantum physics and neuroplasticity. A whole chapter is dedicated to it, and psychobiology. So all the relationships between the body and the psyche, and also, of course, consciousness. How can we influence those processes or guide the body?
Yeah. And you're going to present the book in a few days, because I'm going to post this today on Mexxicamelot's YouTube page. Yeah. So you're presenting your book in a week, right? In Glastonbury, I think.
Yes,
Can you give us some more information?
Yeah, exactly a week. That will be Friday, the 10th of June. I will be in Glastonbury in that little nice library of Avalon near High Street, and there in the evening at 7:30. So whoever is listening, very welcome to join us there, and I will be talking more about this.
And you will also have a workshop while you're there, right?
Yes, it's not particularly about this, but on the Sunday, the 12th, I'm going to give a workshop about the principles of the round table.
Excellent.
So that, yes, it is. It's very nice to do. Yes.
Because there's a connection also with Kabbalah, which is like, wow, amazing.
Very likely that will be the next book. The manuscript is in progress, definitely. So, but we have to wait for that a little bit longer. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for your time and your patience, because things change a little bit, like the plans change, but we're flowing with it. And I think this conversation has been amazing. And I'm sure that we will have another one very soon that we can share again on YouTube. So
I hope so.
Thank you so much. Is there something else you want to tell to our listeners before we finish?
Well, thank you for listening, first of all, because I think it's very important that this tradition of Kabbalah remains alive through the oral tradition, which is a direct transmission, like we are doing now. And you're giving me that opportunity, and not just me in person, but you give the tradition that opportunity to be heard. That's very important, because the books are very important as the written part of it. But the exchange of human soul to human soul in this direct manner is really what gives it the extra dimension of becoming it and keeping it to be a living tradition.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. And now we have this technology to help us do that. Like you're in the Netherlands, I'm in Mexico, and people all over the world can hear you. And I think it's important that they receive this information. So thank you for being here with me. So on behalf of, because this is an effort from Mexxicamelot, thank you. And remember to go check out our podcast, the Subuya Sessions, because Mike also talked to us about other things that are not exactly what we discussed today, but it's really, really interesting. So if you want to know more, go check out the information over there as well. Thank you, Synchronauts. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here with us. And we'll see each other very soon.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.